Am I a Neanderthal man? Well, today on Finding Traction, we talk about the process of becoming fully erect as a man. So did you hear about the two Neanderthals that loved to party? They went clubbing. Or where do two Neanderthals go to lunch? Cave FC. Where did you hear about the Neanderthals that left the comedy club early? The humor was too lowbrow. Well, you're still with me after that opening double entendre and those really bad jokes. Let me see if I can lose the rest of you here and bring up politics. Recently, there was a political story where the U.S. president accused a couple of governors of Neanderthal thinking when it came to fully opening their state despite the pandemic and the COVID-19 virus. Now, in response, a female senator, I think, from the opposing party, she retorted that, hey, being Neanderthal was actually a good thing. This is what she said. She says, Neanderthals are hunter-gatherers. They're protectors of their family. They're resilient. They're resourceful. They tend to their own. Well, before I get any political emails, let me remind you that I'm a Canadian and I'm essentially harmless when it comes to U.S. politics. But I could be wrong on this because I don't know which side of the border. I don't think it depends on what side of the border you're on. I'm not sure that most women would love to be married to a self-confessed Neanderthal of a husband. For further evidence of this, I heard recently of a spectacularly Neanderthalic, now that's a new word I came up with, a spectacular Neanderthalic sermon that a pastor gave, where this is what he told women in his audience, in the congregation. This is what he said, quote, I'm not saying every woman can be an epic trophy wife of all time like Melania Trump. He said with a large image of the former First Lady behind his head, most women can't be trophy wives like her, but maybe you can be a participation trophy. He went on, why is it so many times that women, after they get married, let themselves go? God made men to be drawn to beautiful women. We're made this way. We can't help ourselves. You need to put down your cupcakes, women, and pick up your makeup. Wow. Now that deserves the Unibrow Award of the Month. Apparently that pastor has now resigned and entered into counseling. I think he probably should consider witness protection as well. You know, all this talk of Neanderthal lifestyles or what it means to be a Neanderthal, it got me thinking, am I a Neanderthal? In what ways would I still be considered to be one? More specifically, I want to talk about a term that I just made up called being an emotional Neanderthal or an ET. And what do I mean by that? Because I'm not advocating being some sort of extreme, touchy-feely sort of man. Reminds me of a female stand-up comedian I heard, and she was talking about how she essentially wanted her boyfriend to be more like her girlfriends. That was until, of course, her boyfriend remarked to her how much she had hurt his feelings, and she went, "Hey, that's not really what I was looking for." So, you know, we're wanting to move past these kind of superficial caricatures of what men and women are like. But I am not sure that I want to be considered an emotional Neanderthal. So what do I mean by that phrase, and why am I using it in such a negative or pejorative sense? Here's a few reasons. Number one, I think emotional Neanderthals have no idea of their emotional landscape, and as a result, they're actually very poor students for deep recovery. You see, one of the biggest surprises I think I've had in working with men in recovery is how crucial men have found this whole work around discovering their emotions. Before they begin to, move into groups and us working through some of their issues, they simply relied on what they would call, or I would call, external tools and techniques and tricks and filters, and those can be helpful to a degree. But really what they're not figuring out is how their acting out behaviors are connected with their emotions. And over time they realize, you know what, I'm actually, these emotions always precede me acting out. Or you know what, I'm actually acting out more to avoid pain in my life than I really am than pursuing pleasure, for example. I still pursue pleasure, but really this is more about avoiding pain. And that sort of emotional awareness is what takes the successful recovery guys that I work with beyond sort of Neanderthal emotions, hungry, horny, angry, that kind of thing, and really begin to become more nuanced and move into more helpful reactions. So that's the first thing, what I'd call an emotional Neanderthal. Here's number two. We're just going to call them ETs from now on. They're very poor at intimate connections with their partner, since their lack of self-awareness means their partners have really no idea how to connect with them at an emotional level. You see, way too many women find that they're living with a stranger. And maybe it's because the men themselves are living with a stranger, which is themselves. So that's number two. Number three, ETs have a limited understanding of how their interactions are being perceived by others. I used to think the term emotional intelligence was all about self-awareness about our emotions. But I now spend a lot more time thinking about it as this: how are other people experiencing me? Let me give you a silly example. I was at university. There was this guy in residence and he creeped out all the girls. And the funny thing is, he wasn't that bad of a guy, but he just had no idea about personal distance. He would stand way too close to you when he spoke to you. The guys just kind of kept backing up, but the girls found it super creepy and thought he was always hitting on them. I mean, it was simply a lack of social awareness, how he was being experienced by other people. In the same way, I think true emotional intelligence is where we have a really clear idea about how other people are experiencing our friendship, our interactions, and our relationships with them. If there ever was a skill that guys moving into relationships need to learn, is, because we become so centered around computers, it's how to actually socially interact and moving past swipe left and swipe right. So I think emotional intelligence, as opposed to being an emotional Neanderthal, is absolutely crucial in today's society. Here's number four. ETs have a limited ability to help their wives heal from the effects of their sexual addictions and betrayal. The reasons for this are myriad, but I think number one is just simply they have a limited ability to empathize with their wives. They want to, for example, when they start recovery, and maybe there's some disclosure, which is often really clumsy, they want to rush their wives through a sort of a botched process of quickly putting their misdeeds in the rearview mirror. Now what they feel like they deserve, because of the new things they're doing, they feel like they now deserve a cheerleader for a wife for all the great changes they've made. And they're confused when they come home and they don't find this one woman marching band wearing some skimpy outfit waiting for them, or something like that. And their wives are saying, you have no idea how you've hurt me. You have no idea how I'm feeling. And you have no idea how to help me. Number five is this. ETs confuse their recovery, with their relationship. The guys are thinking, hey, I'm doing much better. I'm hitting it out of the park in my recovery. I've made all these great changes. Why has my relationship not turned around? Why is my marriage, why is my wife not happy with me? Why is she even resentful? You might have heard of some of these examples from marriage therapy where the therapist says, okay, here's a piece of paper. Okay, hide your piece of paper for a second. I want you to write down a number from 1 to 9, how you feel about your marriage, the quality of marriage, how much contentment it's bringing to you and good feelings, all those kind of things. And the guy writes down, 7 or 8, and the wife writes down 2 or 3. And when they show the numbers to each other, the guy is shocked. What do you mean 2 or 3? That's impossible. He has no idea. And one of the reasons is, especially men in recovery, we tend to confuse our recovery with our relationship. They're two very different things. I don't know what episode it is, but Matt Dobschuetz on Porn Free Radio, he has an episode that says your marriage is not your recovery. And it's absolutely crucial that we can distinguish between the two of them. So I check that out. It's a great episode. And here's the last one, 6. ETs are always confused about what their wife really wants. Because in one sense, they're such lousy students of their wife, they're always kind of flummoxed because they're going, I have all these good intentions and I do all these things and it's never counted as credit. It's like they're never noticed. And I do my best to get a hit and I keep striking out. And they have no idea of what they're doing wrong. As a result, they have no idea of what it means to do it right. So, for those reasons, I hope that if you are an emotional Neanderthal or you have parts of this that say, yeah, some of this stuff does resemble me, that you're willing to say, you know what, I am tired of dragging my knuckles on the ground. Is there any hope for me? Let me just throw out a few ideas and a few resources. And I'm feeling really confident since I got Andrew Bowman on my podcast. Hopefully I can maybe get a couple of these people as well on my podcast. But even if I don't, number one, look around you to find somebody that you consider to be somewhat emotionally together. Kind of a bit of either a peer or somebody that you think has got something to give you. You might look at them and go, you know what? You appear to do a really good job of connecting with your wife. How do you do that? I have a buddy, Jake, and he is one of these fishermen. And he's one of those guys that when a bunch of guys go down and fish at the river, we have steelhead and all sorts of salmon. And, it's a big fishing town that I live in. And he's the kind of guy that when it goes, you go down there, he's usually the one that comes home with fish. And other guys are looking at him going like, how do you do that? Because he knows the kind of bait to use. He's just one of these avid fishermen. So I think number one is just look around and say, who looks really good at knowing how to connect with their wife, and just get around them and ask them questions. That's always a great start, just getting some peer help. But let me give you a couple other ideas as well on this. Number 2, relational skills can be learned. Take, for example, empathy. Jason Martinkus has a masterclass on empathy. I got to get him on here. I heard him on Pure Sex Radio. Some great stuff. And you can learn skills around empathy. Great start. Here's a third one. Some scenarios may be beyond your ability to fix on your own, just because the types of betrayal that you've caused or the types of problems or the emotional response you're getting, you don't have the full array of emotional tools to help your wife through her process. I heard another great podcast, and it's with Coach. Well, the book is called Helping Her Heal. And I think it's Coach Carol. I could be wrong. And there's actually a workbook to help men develop really good questions and a process to become less, essentially, of an emotional Neanderthal. You know, what does helping her heal, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? How does that work? Most of us need a paint by numbers approach. My wife's an artist. She's amazing. You know, she draws stuff. That's crazy. I can't draw anything. You know, I'm kind of one of those guys that need a paint by number. Just give me some numbers, some lines, you know, the thing you did in school. And that's about as far as I can get. And you might need something like that. So we'll probably have to get her on as well. So we'll see what we can do. And here's the last one. You know, if you think that you're really hot stuff when it comes to emotional intelligence, and you're definitely not a Neanderthal, and everyone experiences you really well, and you're such a great guy, that might all be true. But let me encourage you to take the step of asking some people who really know you, how do you experience me? You know, in our friendship, in our relationship. And if you really want the master class, ask your wife, how do you experience me? What is it like to be like in a relationship with me? Now, again, that's when you really are going to figure out the truth and what you just, you know, how you just BSing yourself. So men, here is to walking fully erect, shoulders back, knuckles off the ground. So till next time, we'll see you later.